Hello everybody! What I want to show you today is 4 different techniques that are not only cool, but they are also very useful, and you can add them to almost any song that you play and they will sound great and give you that edge and that ability to not just sound like playing beginner, but something more special. So let's begin. The first one is what's called arpeggio. And arpeggio means that instead of just playing those full strums, those down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up, for example, we also break down the chords into individual notes, and we really let the guitar shine. So this is, for example, how it sounds like in a very famous song. Now the thing is, you can use arpeggios not just in songs that originally used them, but you can apply arpeggios to any song and any chord progression you can think of, and it will make it a lot more interesting. The only thing you need in order to do it is to have an arpeggio pattern in your mind. So for example, that specific song, in that Green Day song, Time of Your Life, the pattern is bass 3-2, 3-4-3. And then it just repeats itself throughout all the chords. Bass 3-2, 3-4-3, bass 3-2, 3-4-3, bass 3-2, 3-4-3, bass. So you can apply that same pattern to many other songs, or make up your own pattern that uses the first string as well, or just improvise a little bit between the different chords. So this is the arpeggio. The second technique is what I like to call bass stairways. And what does that mean? So when we are using a bass stairway, it means that, for example, if we got a song with a transition from C to an A minor, so instead of just moving from the C to the A minor, where the bass of the C is on the 3rd fret, 5th string, and the bass of the A minor is on the open 5th fret, on the open 3rd fret of the 5th string. So instead of just, we stop on the B right here in the middle. This is, for example, the intro for Hallelujah in the Jeff Buckley version. And the way we're going to make it work, and by the way, you can also do it with some hammer-ons. And pull-offs. But anyway, in order to make this work, you're going to have to know what is the scale that you're playing on, because you can't just do it on. This is off the scale, so it doesn't sound good. So you got to know where to press. So you got to memorize the scale patterns for this part of the fretboard. For the common scales, which I would go for a beginning with a C major and a G major, and then you will know that it's not really hard to memorize on the G. For example, if you got a song with a G and the E minor, so it's going to be 2nd fret as the stairway. And of course, it doesn't have to be on arpeggios. You can do it with full strums as well. In the more advanced levels of the bass stairways, you can actually do bass riffs like blues style. But anyway, in order to learn more about bass stairways in more depth, check out my lesson below about bass stairways, and this is it for it. The next one is what I like to call chord chucks. or strum chucks. And what does that mean? This is a technique that is very liked by Jack Johnson, and it sounds like that. So for example, you're playing a song, but then instead of just letting the strings ring all the time, so you give it those chucks. In order to get the sound of those chucks when playing bar chords, what you want to do, instead of pressing down the chord, you just want to lightly rest your fingers on the strings, but do not press them. So when you do that and strum, strings are muted. So if your chord should sound like this, but in the middle for a bunch of downs and ups, or just one or two, you lift it up so you'll get that sound. Now this is one way of doing that is relevant for bar chords, but you can also do it with other chords, for example with this technique, where the chucks come from the slaps that you give from the back of your fingers onto the strings. For example, again with Jack Johnson's Better Together. So, a very cool technique. I explain a lot more in depth about the different patterns in which you can play this one and how to do it with the bar chords as well. In the lesson below, you can find a link to below about 2 different ways to incorporate this Jack Johnson sound. It's exactly about those techniques, so you can enjoy this lesson. The last technique is all about adding those licks and riffs into your sound. So for example, which give a very cool transition between the chords. Now obviously you don't want to do it too often because it will be too much, but even if you do it once in a while, it sounds very cool. And there is a huge variety to how you can apply this technique. For example, in the world of bluegrass, you see it in many different ways. But the nice thing about this technique is that you don't have to go crazy about it, because even if you add just a couple of notes here and there, which again come from the scale, they have to come from the scale, so you'll get that cool sound. You can add that sort of Jimi Hendrix quality to it by playing not just one string at a time, but playing it instead with the string above it or below it, so 2 strings at the same time. And basically this is very similar to the bass stairways and bass riffs, but instead that we're doing it on the treble strings. So the way to add this technique to your sound is to learn the scale, and then the first step would be to add just one note here and there. And then turn it into a riff, and you will have to practice them slowly, just like how you practice scale, just like this. In that same way. So practice the scales in the different scale patterns, like 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And you can watch more lessons about this topic in the links I give you below. And anyway, these are the 4 techniques. I hope that gave you a lot of cool stuff to work on, and have a great time. I will see you in the next lessons. Goodbye.